Hello and welcome to the Vine Life Podcast. I'm Tony Clark, your host. Today I've got the honor of having Kevindownes on the program. Let me tell you a little bit about Kevin. Kevin is an extremely accomplished actor, director, and producer. He has many years of writing, directing, and producing in numerous films such as I Can Only Imagine, American Underdog, The Kurt Warner Story, and the movie we're going to be discussing today, Jesus Revolution. Kevin is also the co-founder and partner of Kindom Story Company, and again, the producer of this newest movie, Jesus Revolution. So, Kevin, I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's an honor on my end. I was thinking about questions for you, Kevin, but I was going to ask you, how the movie got started, what your involvement was in the movie in the beginning, but my wife and I saw the movie Saturday and were extremely overwhelmed and touched and moved emotionally about the movie. And a line in the movie stuck out to me. I'm not going to give bits and pieces of the movie away, but I'm going to paraphrase something in the movie. And the line was basically, don't be so arrogant as to think that God can't work through your failures. And that touched me in my life. It kind of summed up the entire movie, the story, the true story of Jesus Revolution to me. But what do you have to say about that, Kevin? How does that play into the movie about God working through failed individuals and individuals who aren't perfect?
Yeah, it's one of the more profound lines in the movie. The first time I saw it strung together with the rest of the edit, I was moved. And, it too often in our situations, I think we find ourselves in a place where because of certain events that are happening in the present, we've all of a sudden come to the conclusion of what the outcome is going to be, but yet we're not relying and trusting in God to have a plan that's quite possibly better than our own. And it's such a good reminder, man. I have been subject to that. I've been kind of guilty of that journey that Chuck found himself in that moment, and just to have, his wife just really gently remind him of that was it was a beautiful display of love and affection. And, you just so want to, you want to have that constant reminder in your own life when things just aren't going the way that you had hoped and you had really pictured and envisioned.
Yeah, and the characters, the true life characters in this movie, they weren't perfect all the time. And I know a lot of Christian entertainment sometimes comes across with everything is wrapped up in the end. There's like everything is wrapped up with a beautiful tie or bow tie at the end, like a present. And that's not how real life works, is it?
Things are often messy to get to the final plan. But if you look back at that moment, moment of doubt, if he had known there would be thousands of churches that would spin off of this, sort of Jesus movement, and that literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people would come to Christ through this ministry. He would probably find himself in a different situation, right? But when you're in that moment, and, he literally thought he had failed and he had made the wrong. And so I just thought it was just a beautiful visual example of trials that we often find ourselves in, no matter what the situation is, and, what's our solution, what's our out of that moment. And, and Chuck's wife really just gives just a beautiful, gentle, loving reminder.
Yeah, don't we all need that? So, yeah. Okay, let's start at the question I was going to ask initially is, how did you become involved in this movie? How did it come across your desk?
Kindom Story Company is a company that I co-founded with my partners, John and Andy Irwin. And, we've been making movies together for over 10 years. And, a number of years ago, about 8 years ago, we made a movie called Woodlawn, which was a football movie set in the South back in the 70s. And John uncovered a Time magazine article. On the cover of it was the Jesus Revolution, kind of this picture, of course, is displayed in the movie. And as he was looking through it, saw pictures of Lonnie Frisbee and Chuck Smith and was just really intrigued by it. And so over time, befriended Greg Laurie and realized there was a connection there between those three people. And just through interviews of Greg and Kathy, just, we thought, there's a story here that needs to be uncovered and told into a movie. And so it took us some time to develop the story because we wanted the story to be right. We wanted the story, there's thousands of stories that have come out of this time period. And we wanted the story to be really to resonate with as many people as possible for what we're going through today in our country. And so that's hard to do when movies take over a year to make from the time you press go. It's really hard to adjust and shift in certain moments. But, through a lot of prayer, just really praying that God would lead us in a certain direction. The script went through many variations. And at the end of the day, we just took that faith step and decided with our partners at Lionsgate and decided, this is the one that we really feel called to do. And lo and behold, within a month of releasing the movie, all these college revivals start breaking out, which is what our movie is about. And you couldn't predict that and plan that. And, we're just so grateful for God and his providence and his wisdom to be able to kind of line these things up so the movie could really resonate in such a way that it has been. I mean, the letters that we're seeing from people all across the country of just how they're moved, people coming to Christ, and just a lot of tears and emotion is just really, really wonderful.
Yeah, and people coming to Christ obviously is people who don't know the Lord to begin with. And I noticed maybe the marketing of this movie and some of the actors that you have in it, it's not primarily marketed to churches. It's got a much bigger audience, and that's the thing that I appreciate about it. And can you speak about a little bit about that it's not necessarily a church-only film. It's marketed to the entire world.
Yeah, I mean, it's marketed to the entire world because I think people really can find themselves in the shoes of several of the characters that are displayed in the movie. And so that's the beauty, is when you have a film that has multiple entry points and people will come away with a different take or a different outlook based on maybe something that resonated within their own life to what they saw in the film. And, at the end of the day, our movies at Kindom Story Company, we aspire to tell true stories that showcase the power of the gospel. And, in our past movies, I Can Only Imagine, and I Still Believe, and American Underdog, and Woodlawn, that's all of those are very similar in their themes. And so with Jesus Revolution, we really wanted to dive deeper into that and really have entry points for a lot of different audiences and touch points. So just love the fact that people are out loving on the film and enjoying it. And
Kevin, I've got to ask, what's it like working with? I want you to speak about the cast, but also what's it like working with Kelsey Grammer?
Kelsey Grammer's great. I mean, I was surprised as anybody that he said yes to do this. And the first time that he showed up on set, first day, him and I sat down, and my first question was, "Why'd you say yes to this? I'm just so curious." And and he told the story that he's told on interviews, which is, him and his friends were kind of getting together and reflecting on the roles and the work they've done in their life. And all of them were like, I want to be able to, do work that really leaves a mark to another generation. And so the next morning after that, our script showed up in his inbox. And it was just a really quick yes to him. He emailed his reps and said, "Hey, I want to do this. Make sure that I do this movie." And so it was really a heartfelt and passionate plea that it was. I mean, I looked at it as like, okay, God cast that role, because we didn't audition anybody, and it was just he was the first one that came to mind when John Irwin and I sat down and said who should play this role, and we went with Kelsey. So, and it was like that for a lot of the cast members. It's very important when you're casting a movie that you get complete buy-in from all of your cast, and you're not trying to have to convince them of, this is why you need to do the movie, or what are the different reasons you need to do the movie. And so this entire cast bought in from the very get-go. and they believed in the film. They loved the film, loved the script, loved the process, and then obviously they love the finished product, and you're seeing that just in their interviews and their response to it. So it's really a blessing to be able to have that situation.
Well, I was just very impressed with the talent that isn't well known. Some of those actors were just phenomenal in the movie. The actor who played a young Greg Laurie and the actress who played his wife were just amazing. Just amazing to watch their craftsmanship and their work in this movie.
Yeah, no, they're really talented. I mean, they're young, and so I've been texting with them as the movie opened. They're just sort of blown away by it, and it's been great to be able to see them. I started acting when I was their age, and I can't even imagine being thrown into a film this size with this many people watching it opening weekend. And so they literally, their heart's in the movie. They love the script. And I'm just really happy for them because this is a movie that they're going to be proud of for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely, and they should be. There's a scene, I guess, about midway through the movie, something like that, but it's the baptism scene. And that was probably the most powerful scene for me. The actor who played a young Greg Laurie going under the water, that scene where he was sinking down. And I don't want to give too much away. People need to see the movie. But that was powerful. And the gospel message was clearly proclaimed or relayed before the baptism. Speak about the baptism scene a little bit, please.
Yeah, I mean, the baptism scene was very important. I mean, it was important that we shot it at Pirates Cove, the actual Pirates Cove in Newport Beach, California. We believed it was a character in the movie because it is so iconic. And so, boy, a lot of stories that came out of that. I mean, we had actual baptisms going on, about 300 background and crew people were part of it and cast. But while we were shooting scenes, actual baptisms were going on. People just were so moved by what we were doing. They wanted to get baptized. And then Greg Laurie was actually baptizing an actor over on the side. And it was one of those 3 days were something I'll never forget in shooting a film. You knew that God was present. You knew that something significant was about to happen as far as what this movie was going to do.
You mentioned about what this movie is going to do, and you mentioned it previously about the Asbury and some other colleges who seem to be going through a great awakening, I guess, in those areas. I want to ask you, Kevin, how desperate do you think that we are to have another Jesus revolution in this country, in the West?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an interesting line, right, that Lonnie gives Chuck in the beginning. Your people have got to be desperate enough. And so are we desperate enough as a generation to be able to see a Jesus revolution kind of spark? And it filled my heart with joy when all of a sudden you saw these revivals spark out at a number of different colleges. I mean, it started at Asbury, but a number of them that were public universities are holding, they're still going on. And so to me, it's amazing because it shows that there's a younger generation out there that's absolutely on fire for God. They're searching for truth. Some similarities in the film, right? Some, young people they're out searching for truth, oftentimes in all the wrong places. But these revivals across America really showed that there's a heart and a spirit for God that is in that generation. And that was our hope with the movie, was to be able to share, in a time that was a little bit long ago, a revival that had sparked, a Jesus movement and a revolution with this generation that's in college today. And so the fact that it's happening while the movie is actually releasing is something that only God could orchestrate.
Now, I think I heard in one of your interviews or one of the other directors' interviews about this movie slightly being delayed, and it was made because of COVID or something like that, and it would have taken place at an earlier date, possibly. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had we've been working on this film for about 7 years, and one of the times where we had it launched and we were in pre-production, and then all of a sudden COVID hit. We were 4 weeks away from starting photography, had crew hired, we were starting to cast, and it was a different iteration of the script. That's the amazing thing. And so it would have been a different movie. Different director was attached, different iteration of the script. And then we stopped it and shelved it and shot a couple of different things after a 4-month break. But then came back, and our partner at Lionsgate said, we should go back to Jesus Revolution. And we switched directors out, and then did a rewrite on the script based on their vision, what we believed that our society would really resonate with. And then this is the movie that we got. And so I'm thankful for God that he literally, we were on our knees praying that, Lord, give us the message we want to tell. And then this is the movie that kind of came out of it.
Well, I think it's divine providence that it came out at the time that it has, certainly. Kevin, talk about maybe the cinematography of this film. Just looking at it, and I guess around this time I was maybe 1 or 2 years old of the Jesus Revolution, but looking back at old photographs of this time, old film of this time, it really gave me the feel of being there in the early 70s, with the clothing, with the cars on the street, with the way people looked. And talk about maybe the cinematography of the film in that aspect. Talk about that a little bit, please.
Yeah, it was very important for us to have cinematography and wardrobe and production design that really allowed the audience to immerse themselves into this world and this experience. Same with the musical soundtrack. I mean, that was certainly a very expensive soundtrack, a lot of really popular, well-known tracks. But the point of that was to really immerse the audience visually and, through the music so that they could experience what was actually going on. And so I think that was very important, very significant. Love the cinematographer, Keese, who actually shoots The Chosen, the episodic of The Chosen episodic show. Did a really great job of just giving us the right texture and right layers of light that we needed for this particular film.
Well, it's certainly there. And one of my final questions, Kevin, is there are a lot of creatives out there who happen to be Christian. And a lot of Christians tend to shrink back from the arts. So what I'm asking you is you're accomplished in the arts and you're a born again believer. What encouragement would you have for young Christians who happen to be entering into the art field, whether cinematography, movie making, musician, what have you? Can you give them some encouragement?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to really find what your passion is and then go follow it and then never quit. For me, it was when I was 24 years old. I was like, as a young man praying, God, what do you want me to do with my life? I have no idea. I was passionate about acting. Had no idea what producing was. I didn't know what that was. But then when I ended up producing my first film, I was like, okay, I can do this. I know how to do this. And it was, so every film I've done since then has been a movie that is about Jesus and showcases the power of the gospel. Not all true stories. Didn't quite get into that arena until I met up with John and Andy, and we realized how powerful that was, and realized that God really wanted us to be here. But my encouragement for people is don't give up. I mean, it's not easy and it's not overnight to be able to at least, release a movie of the size that we're doing. And we make mistakes in our storytelling whenever we've had some past films. And so, it's a lot of trial and error, and you just kind of get through it. But at the end of the day, it's just a lot of prayer. I mean, you got to get down on your knees and pray that this is where God wants you to be, whether that's producing or acting or behind the camera with cinematography or wardrobe or makeup or whatever it is. There's something that God will put in your heart, a passion. And if that's what you want to do, chase it and don't give up.
Amen. And final question, Kevin, because I know our time is short here. How can people support the work that you do? How can they find more about you and support, again, the movies that you produce and direct?
Yeah, Kindom Story Company is our company. And so you can find us online. We have social media handles and outlets and obviously a website. And, you'll hear about all of our content as it's coming out, because we obviously do quite a good job of getting the word out through social media and digital media and commercials and whatnot. And so my biggest advice, I need to do a better job of getting a website going. I don't have one for myself. All my work is sort of poured into our company. But if you Google me or Google our company, and all sorts of information comes up. And pray for us. Pray that God would literally put the right stories in front of us, and that we would choose wisely the stories that he wants us to tell.
Well, the Jesus Revolution movie, I encourage everyone to see it, and I'll provide your links below the video, certainly. But Kevin, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and I ask you to just stay on for 30 seconds post-interview. But thank you so much, man, for coming on and talking about your new movie.
You're welcome. Jesus Revolution, check it in theaters.
Absolutely, and until next time.